All right, my name is Jasiha Welch, and my communication research presentation is entitled "We All Talk Real Pretty." So tonight, I will be discussing the English language and the various dialects of the English language. So according to Robert Delaney of Long Island University, there are at least 24 distinct dialects of the American English language on the mainland United States. Now, this map didn't include Hawaii or Alaska, which also have dialects of their own. Now, growing up in Arkansas, the dialect that I'm most used to is the Ozark dialect, which, come to find out from this research, is actually closely related to the Southern Appalachian dialect of the Carolinas. So I had no idea until I was doing this research. For me, I could sit at the mall or at a coffee shop for an afternoon and just people watch. And by people watching, there's also people listening. And to me, not only the watching, but the listening to people and hearing how they speak, different tones and everything, how they pronounce, that's always fascinated me. I've always liked languages. Whenever I was in high school, I took Spanish. Whenever I was in college, my first go around, I actually minored in German. So being around other languages and hearing all of this has always been an interest. So what is the English language? Well, according to ethnologue.com, English is actually the third most common language of the world. Mandarin Chinese and Spanish take number 1 and number 2. Now, English is spoken in 99 countries worldwide, and it has approximately 335 million native speakers. English gets its roots from the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of Great Britain and Southeast Scotland. And then down here at the bottom, I mentioned lexical similarities to German and French. Lexical just means words and grammar of the language and how they're structured. English has a 60% similarity to German and a 27% similarity to French. So if anyone speaks German or French in addition to English, and you found that it was kind of easy to learn German or French, that's part of the reason why, because English has such a great similarity to German and French. So what is a dialect? According to the Oxford English Dictionary, dialect is a variety of a language that is a characteristic of a particular group of the language's speakers. Now, the map that was up there previously shows the different regions of the U.S. and how the dialects are broken down. Dialects are distinguished from accents by vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Dialects also, they mostly refer to regional speech patterns, but they also can include social class. The two dialects that I'm going to talk about tonight are the African American Vernacular English, also known as Ebonics, and I'll also be talking about Ozark and Appalachian English. Now, an accent varies from a dialect because an accent only deals with the pronunciation of words. So if I were to get up here and go I talk like this whenever I go home to Arkansas, that would be the accent of the language. But how the words are constructed would be the dialect of the language. And so I kind of broke that down right there. Language versus dialect. There's no universally accepted means by linguists to distinguish between the two. Linguists believe that everybody speaks a dialect because everybody speaks a language. It just depends on where you are in the country and the regional influences that affect how you speak that language. There are also standard versus non-standard dialects. Standard dialects are the ones that are supported by government. They're the institutionalized forms of the language. So a standard dialect would be like American English, Canadian English, Australian English, British English, like that. Non-standard dialects are the ones that aren't institutionalized by the government. That would include Ebonics, Ozark Appalachian English, and the Yap dialect of New Orleans, which I was exposed to last weekend. So to talk about African American vernacular English, or Ebonics, it's strongly related to Southern American English, but the roots of it are up to debate as to how that dialect started. Ebonics is distinguished from mainstream English by verb tenses, like where you is instead of where are you. It also drops the final G, like instead of saying tripping, tripping. And the use of the double negative, which how many of you remember Sweet Brown from a couple of years ago and her apartment fire? And she's like, ain't nobody got time for that? That would be a double negative. So, now Appalachian English, like I said earlier, it's closely related to Ozark English, which I didn't know until I was doing this research. So moving to North Carolina, the language, was still kind of like back home. And it's believed that Appalachian English started diverging from mainstream English as the early settlers started adapting English to the unexplored frontier and their new frontier life. And it's believed by linguists that Appalachian English is the most distinctive and divergent of all the dialects of North American English. Now, being the most distinctive and divergent, like I didn't break down on here the differences, like I'm just going to talk them out. Like with Appalachian English, instead of saying wash, wash. Like how many of you have heard wash instead of wash? Well, that would be Appalachian English. Tater or mater instead of potato or tomato, that's another example. The Southern drawl, like drawing out the vowels in a word, that would go back to Appalachian English. Using double downs, like rifle gun, coon dog, stuff like that. And the word like to. I like to not have caught that rabbit. Like to is an example of Appalachian English. With Ebonics, like some of the words that came back into American language were dig, like do you dig it, chill out, soul, funky. Appalachian English kind of contributed peckerwood, like a genuine person, toboggan, like a knit cap. So in conclusion, I've explained to you a couple of the different dialects of English, a couple that are present in our area. And I hope that you take away from this that by learning about the different dialects of American English, that it can help facilitate better communication with people from different regions of the country.
Tell us about Earl.
Okay. So this was the story that I got whenever I was in New Orleans this weekend, because I told Jim's family that I was doing a presentation about accents. And so them being from Louisiana, they have kind of a heavy Cajun accent, and I've been kind of warned ahead of time that I may not understand. I thought I understood fine. But like whenever Jim was growing up, he and his brothers had a friend who had studded legs. And so he got around the neighborhood on a skateboard, and his name was Earl. Well, there was one day that Jim and his family were going out. Earl had came to visit, and so Jim's mom was getting everybody loaded up into the vehicle, and because Earl was on a skateboard, studded legs, she goes to tell Jim's dad that she needs help putting Earl in the vehicle. Well, because of the dialect and everything, Jim's dad hears Earl that thinks oil and starts cussing his mom out because there's no oil in the vehicle. He's got to put oil in the truck. But whenever she's really saying he needs to put Earl in her. So that was the little dialect story that was told when I was down there.
All right.
All right. Any questions? So